All right. Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. Today is AMA day, so ask us anything. And we've had some email questions come in, and I'm going to lob some, some discussion points at Cordell and have him start us off, and then he and I can, exchange and answer some questions. So we look forward to anybody and everybody's feedback, so we can hopefully clarify a point if we haven't covered it completely. So Laura in South Carolina wrote in and said, why is the pre-planning phase so important? I mean, evidently we tend to beat that up quite a bit. And so you care to pre-planning. Why is that so important?
It's the only way you can start. So you can't get this project off the ground unless you have a proper pre-planning phase. And excuse me, getting over something.
I'm not going to go into that.
unless you execute the pre-planning phase, you're never going to have a successful project. You're going to keep this thing on track, on budget, have all your scopes outlined and delineated, keep your subs together. It's going to turn into a tornado real quick. Because all the time we've said in the video, it's just, you want to save money, pre-planning and budget. You want to save time, pre-planning. Outside of that, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and you summarized it clearly, and as we say in the course quite a bit, it's the only time to save money, because if you do not do those steps properly and lay it out and clearly define everything, all it does is cost you time and money. So really, that's
with all them. A lot of what we call the go backs is if you don't have your appliances and you don't have your specs and all of your installed materials, all that stuff planned out from the beginning. Even if you have, let's say, an unlimited budget or whatever, if you don't have those items picked and outlined from the beginning, your electrician's not going to necessarily know what you need. Your plumber's not necessarily going to know what you need. So you're not going to be able to do those installs or those rough-ins like you need, or they're going to come back and they're going to have to come back. And so it's not going to be an efficient job site. So, even if you're not super concerned with saving money or staying on budget, there's no way to keep this thing on track.
Yeah, and I don't want to sidewind, but what you just said there, rings true to the point of one of the things that we really cover of, why some subcontractors don't necessarily like working directly with homeowners, because if this phase is not done well, you just hit on the go backs, the comebacks, all that. It really jacks up their schedule for their projects and their customers. So it makes it very inconvenient and irritating, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, as a contract, this is part of what we get paid for is being able to do this. And that's what we're trying to share with you guys is this is part of our job. So now it needs to be part of your job, but it's an extremely crucial part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Cordell. So the next question came in from Haley in Seattle. And the question is, really, what is the difference between a preliminary and a final budget and schedule? Because we do talk about preliminary and we talk about final, and then how does that separation, how do you close that gap?
Well, you're going to have to start somewhere, right? So prelim is you're going to be working through your product check, your checklist, and you're picking your products and all your specifications, all your appliances, all your materials for install. And then, with those are going to come some install cost, rough-in costs, all these subcontractor costs. And you're not going to know everything right away, right? And so the biggest thing about budgeting is you're going to have to start somewhere and work down to a final number, your final budget. And so prelim is you're going to have to do the best you can, is what I say. Is you go out and pick everything you want. You know what you want. Now, you might know right away that those are out of your budget. Some items are cheaper to buy and more expensive to install, or more expensive up front, but cheaper to install. So those are things that are going to mix you up in the middle of this. But prelim, pick everything you want. You may not know an installation cost, and then you're going to have to start working back into that. And so basically back your way into a final number, if that makes it any clearer, you think?
No, that does make a lot of sense. It's, like you said, you're starting with a rough budget. What can you afford? What does it look like with the products you've chosen? And then the idea is closing the gap of any product or scope differential that is missed when you're having these construction meetings with your subs. And that's what dials in that number clearly to me.
Yeah, as you start to get your subs dialed in on what kind of products you want, what that is going to look like for install.
Mhm.
You can really start to refine stuff. So, prelim is obviously very preliminary, but you're going to be able to get those materials numbers pretty easily. Obviously, your
Mhm.
cabinet budget, your countertop budget. The harder things are going to be those conversations you have to have with subcontractors, and that's where you're going to have to either start working back on your products and on your materials if you're trying to save money on that end of it, um, to, to get this thing finalized and to be in a certain budget range if that's important to you.
Yes. Money always talks. Here's a fun one, and this one I do get a lot of questions on, and I'm sure you do as well, because we talk about when you're picking your subs and whatever, like, and I'm talking about selecting your team. So the question is, we mentioned gut reaction for team selection. So regardless of referrals that you get, and I don't care if it comes from your mom, how do you deal with the fact that somebody came to you highly referred, but just doesn't feel right? How do you eliminate them immediately because I blindly say, if it feels funny, cut them, period.
No, I agree. And I'm a big gut reactor. There's a lot of people, it's like, I just, something about it, right? And then the other thing is it's not personal. So I've had same thing with employees that work for me, is I brought some people on before and it's like, hey man, I'm sorry, but this ain't gonna work out. You just don't jive with my crew. And it's, so especially hiring subcontractors, and a lot of times it's, you don't want to be disrespectful. And at this point, you haven't hired them and now you're trying to can them. You just are not hiring them from the beginning. So if you're feeling someone out and just straight up bad gut reaction, it's not going to be good for you, because unlikely that your gut reaction is going to change it somewhere in the future. You're not going to be like, I really had a bad feeling about this guy, but now we're best friends. It could happen in a Disney movie, but probably not at your, so when you when you have that if you get a feeling, and I don't know why, but it's probably not going to work. You might not be right, but it's probably not going to work. So you need to find someone you're comfortable with, because if you're going to have a working relationship with this person, you need to be comfortable with them.
Yeah, well, and specifically, this course that we're talking about right now is specifically kitchen and bathroom. And so that's inside your building envelope, inside your space, in your most intimate spaces of kitchens and bathrooms, because that's where people spend most of their time. And regardless of what the project is, I don't care if it's planting some trees in your yard, they're going to be on your property. So if it feels funny, it feels funny.
Yeah, and like you're saying, kitchen and bath, it's like a very intimate space where you live here and now all these other people are in here. So it is definitely, you want to follow those guidelines probably a little more than, like you're saying, if they're working on your landscaping, you're probably going to see them once or twice and they're going to be gone, finish the project, write a check.
And these people are going to mess with your routine.
Yes.
Your daily get up and go have coffee is not going to be the same. Yeah, so I think we covered that one good. It's just like, if it feels funny, it's funny. And I like what you said, that it's not personal, and you're not firing them, you're just not hiring them.
Yeah,
and
it's a big difference.
Yeah, and one thing to consider is perhaps have that, retain that person's contact info, and they're on your bench in the event something happens down the road. And
you can't get the contractor that you want. This is the backup, but you're not firing them. You're just not hiring them. So.
Yeah, I actually like the way you pointed that out. That's a point that I have failed to make, and that to me is more poignant and less personal than my take on it is just like, nope.
Well, it's a personality thing. They might be great people, they might do great work, but personality wise, they're not going to work with you. That's what we're talking about here, more or less. Yeah. If they come with great referrals, like you're saying, from your mom or your great aunt Sally, whatever, if its personality isn't going to work, that's what we're talking about. And some people tolerate other personalities better than the others, or they mesh better. Like you and I, we met that gentleman that would not send people to someone's house based on how they conducted him with him, right? So, I'll tolerate that a lot, right? Like language or something like that, probably not going to bother me. Am I going to send them to a highly respectable client that I have a business and an image to uphold? Probably not.
Mhm.
So, and if I do, they're probably not going to jive. So
yeah, no, I get you on that one. So the last one today is a curveball that I got. It is actually a contractor friend, and he's in a situation where he's on a time and materials job, and he asked me for my advice. He says, well, what happens if, if a subcontractor, like in this case, him, makes a mistake on a T&M job?
you eat it.
Thank you. That was my advice. And, and then we had a discussion, a quick discussion on, what's the true cost of a mistake. And it's a 3-time cost, because you're paying to do it, you're paying to take it out, and you're paying to redo it. And that's labor and material. So it's an interesting triangle of cost there. And like I said, if you're a contractor or you've hired a sub that's made an error outside of the product and scope description that's been laid forth, that's going to be part of your contract, I think, discussion. So that's a bigger question, and which is why I brought it up, is like, well, how does this relate to this particular discussion? Because some of these small scale stuff, like kitchens and bath, it's hard to hard bid, and there might be some stuff T&M laid out, and especially gaps. And if your contractor's got any credibility whatsoever, they're not going to pass on their mistakes to you. That was my
No, it's not appropriate. You don't need to be paying for them. So if they make a mistake, they eat it. That's just how it works. You're not paying for that time. It's not on you.
Right. Anyway, those are the questions that we've got this week. Hopefully they've cleared up. We look forward to hearing from everybody in the future, and show it, throw us a curveball. We'll see what we can do with it.
Yeah, like it says, AMA, ask us anything. So if you guys got any questions?
It's not AU. It's not AUA, dude. It's AMA.
I'm going with what you said, man.
Oh, fair enough. All right, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop recording now.